A woman once walked into a courtroom, and before anyone could even begin the formal proceedings, she shattered the calm atmosphere with her harsh voice, declaring loudly that she was not going to pay any fine and that the judge could do whatever he wanted. And the entire room fell silent because this was not just any courtroom. It was a place where people were used to kindness, patience, and understanding. A place where even the most difficult cases were handled with a human touch. Yet on this day, something felt different. The tension in the air was thick, and all eyes turned toward the judge, waiting to see how he would respond to such open defiance. But instead of reacting with anger, he remained composed, his voice calm as he offered her a solution, explaining that he could arrange a payment plan that would make it easier for her to pay over time. But the woman, clearly frustrated and overwhelmed, refused to listen, her tone growing sharper as she repeated that she would not pay anything, no matter what. And her stubbornness began to test even the patience of the man known for his compassion, because this was someone who had spent years helping people, understanding their struggles, and finding ways to ease their burdens. Yet here he was, facing someone who seemed unwilling to accept any help at all. And slowly, something unfamiliar began to rise within him, a feeling he rarely allowed himself to experience. Anger, and in that moment, perhaps driven by the pressure of maintaining order or simply by the disrespect he was facing, he made a decision that was firm and final, ordering that a boot be placed on her car, effectively immobilizing it until the fine was paid, and with that the case was dismissed. The sound of his decision echoing through the courtroom as the woman stood there, her defiance replaced with a quiet resignation. And as people began to leave, many believed that justice had been served, that the law had taken its course, and that was the end of it. But what happened next would prove that sometimes the most important moments in life occur not during the decision itself, but in the reflection that follows, because after the courtroom emptied and the noise faded away, the judge was approached by someone who knew him better than anyone else, his father, and there was no applause, no praise, only a simple question that carried more weight than any argument presented in court. He asked how that woman would manage her life now, how she would take her children to school, how she would go about her daily responsibilities without her car, and those questions struck deeply, cutting through the layers of authority and reminding him of something he had momentarily overlooked, the human side of justice. And in that instant, the judge was no longer just a figure of authority. He was a son, a man reflecting on his own past. And that past was not one of privilege or ease. It was filled with hardship, struggle, and sacrifice. He remembered what it was like to grow up in difficult conditions, where even the simplest comforts were out of reach, where survival itself required effort and resilience. He remembered working at a young age, delivering milk in harsh weather, polishing shoes on the streets, taking on whatever small jobs he could find just to support his family. And those memories were not distant or faded. They were vivid, real, and suddenly they stood in stark contrast to the decision he had just made, because he realized that the woman he had just judged might be living a life not so different from the one he had once known, a life where every day is a struggle, where every expense matters, and where one setback can create a chain reaction of difficulties. And in that realization, something shifted within him, something profound. He understood that while laws are necessary to maintain order, they are not enough to deliver true justice, because justice without compassion can sometimes create more problems than it solves. And that day became a turning point, a moment that redefined his approach to his role. He made a promise to himself that he would never again make a decision without considering the full impact it would have on a person's life, not just in that moment, but in the days and weeks that would follow. He decided that every case was more than just a file. More than just a violation, it was a story, a human story filled with context, emotion, and complexity. And from that day forward, his courtroom became more than just a place of judgment. It became a place of understanding, where people were not only held accountable for their actions, but were also given the chance to be heard, to explain, to share their circumstances, and in many cases to receive help instead of punishment. And this transformation did not go unnoticed. People began to see a difference. They saw a judge who listened, who empathized, who looked beyond the surface. And over time, his reputation grew, not because he was lenient, but because he was fair in a deeper, more meaningful way. He understood that sometimes a small act of kindness can have a greater impact than a strict penalty. And this philosophy led him to take even bigger steps. He helped create funds to support those who genuinely could not afford to pay fines, ensuring that justice did not become a burden that pushed people further into hardship. And through all of this, he never forgot the moment that started it all, the moment when a rude, defiant woman challenged him in a way no one else had, because that moment was not just about conflict, it was about growth. It was about learning that even those who appear difficult or disrespectful may be carrying unseen struggles, and that responding with understanding can lead to outcomes far more powerful than punishment alone. And as the years passed, that single incident remained a defining memory, a reminder that even the best of us can make mistakes. But what truly matters is what we learn from them. Because in the end, the story was not about a fine, or a courtroom, or even a moment of anger. It was about transformation. It was about how one encounter can change the way a person sees the world, and how that change can ripple outward, affecting countless lives. And that is why this story continues to resonate with people everywhere, because it speaks to something universal. The idea that kindness, when combined with wisdom, has the power to turn even the most difficult situations into opportunities for growth. And that true justice is not just about enforcing rules, but about understanding people, their struggles, their stories, and their humanity.